Let's begin by introducing the supplied parts and hardware. We have a left side and right side crash bars, as well as a cross brace to connect the two sides. We have two M8 by 30 millimeter long hex head bolts plus washers, as well as four M8 NYLOC nuts plus washers. These are the OEM bolts that come out of the bracket. The bracket is secured on the head stem. I'm going to show you in 1 second. So as you can see, the two bolts have already been removed. Those are the corresponding holes right there. And the tools we'll be using: sockets, 10, 12, and 14 millimeter hex sockets, Allen keys or Allen sockets, 4 and 6 millimeters, wrenches, 10, 12, 13, and 14 millimeter, or spanner, depending on how you call it. And we will also be using ratchets and extensions. And as you can see, I have a short and a long version ratchet. The short one's going to come very handy when it comes to removing or tightening the bolts by the headstem bracket. Okay, so the next step is to remove the plastic panel, and before we do so, you got to remove this bolt right there using a 4 millimeter Allen key. So once that's been removed, you will see there are some rubber grommets. You might find one or two coming out with the plastic panel. Don't panic. You can put them back in. You can see right there, one came out on this side. So you're going to have to stuff them back in the corresponding holes, or in this case, one hole. Okay, so I will be using a flathead screwdriver to gently push it back in. You can go around it and step by step push it in, and it's in place now, so you're good to go. And then we're gonna have to remove this bolt here. Next step is to loosen the nuts on these two bolts. So the nuts are on the right hand side. So crack those, and then once you're done, push the two bolts out and then pull them out like so. And then you might find that there is misalignment now between the bracket and the holes in the frame. So what you can do is loosen this bolt in the back. Don't take it out, just loosen the nut. Turn it a couple of times. So once that's done, you will be able to gain a little flex here, a little movement. So this will allow you to perfectly realign those mounting holes, okay? So next step is to install the bracket. And so you will have to gently put it in place without scratching up the plastic panels as well as the front fender. There's very little room here, okay? So take your time, find the best angle, the best position. And as you can see, you got to line up those mounting holes. Okay, now you can prepare the bolts, the two M8 by 30s, and plus those washers and NYLOC nuts. Line up the mounting holes. The only tricky part is that the whole assembly is pretty heavy, and probably the holes are misaligned in your case too. So push those up, and then you will be able to insert the bolts. And now you can put on the washers and spin on the NYLOC nuts. So you have now the bracket moving as well as the headstem bracket on the motorcycle. So what you can do, put a cardboard piece in between the fairing and the bracket, and also in between the bracket and the fender. You just want to make sure that there's sufficient gap between the metal bracket and those plastic panels. I have the ratchet in place on the left side, and then the wrench or spanner in place on the right hand side. Take your time. There isn't a lot of space. Find your best angle and go at it slowly. Okay, so now we are ready to put on the left-hand side crash bar. I've already prepared this bolt here and put some blue thread locker on it. And I also have the M8 washer and NYLOC nut to spin on here, put on here and spin on. Okay, here we go. This one's on, nice and loose. Cross brace is also loose. This bolt spun in just a couple of times, it's still loose. And then down here, the mounting holes have been lined up. One bolt's already through, partially. I'm gonna push it all the way through. I'm gonna grab the second bolt and also push it through, like so. Okay, same steps on the right-hand side as well. I have the M8 NYLOC nut and the washer. I had the OEM bolt that I'm gonna put back in here. It already has Loctite. Okay, right side's in place. Left everything loose. Still, there's some play to it, which is what we want. These bolts have also been pushed through. So now we can spin on the OEM nuts. All right, now everything is in place. All the bolts and nuts, everything's been lined up, and all the bolts have been turned a couple of times, and things are still fairly loose. So now what I'm gonna do, and I suggest you do the same thing, gradually tighten all the bolts and nuts, okay? Do not pull this completely snug and then the next one. Turn it a few times, 4 or 5 times, move on to the next one, and then start all over again. And the next step is you can pull them snug. Final step is gonna be torquing. And so these are all M8 bolts, just for your information. So M8, 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 and M8 down here as well. So 23 Newton meters, and do not forget this bolt back here as well in case you have loosened it. You don't have to, but if you have, don't forget to tighten this. So once you are done with the installation and it's all completed, go out for a test ride. And then after about 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, 80 miles to 120 miles, double check that all the bolts and nuts are tight and up to the torque specs. Thank you for watching. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, info@outbackmotortech.com, or call 877-931-3636. Thanks for watching.